Hey everyone, welcome to Financial Revelations. I am David Szafranski, your host, and I come to you today with great news. Actually, I have several pieces of great news. So let me start with this first, and then we'll get into business. April 2nd of 2027, we are going back to the Amazon to drill a well. You can go with us. You can be an ardent supporter of us through prayer, financial blessings. We like to take people that can't necessarily, not everybody can afford to go. We like to take a few people like that, pay for their plane ticket and their boat fee. We like them to contribute some money. I think everybody has to have some skin in the game. You know that about me. So we don't fund 100% of the trip, but we want to help people go that wouldn't normally be able to go. So that's a piece of news piece number one. Also, you can always get to us. You can call us 440-934-2195 or 1-800-344-2534. You can go online and see us. You can go online for the mission trips, nativosusa.org. All these things are going to be running below me. Corey's going to put them up there for us to make it easy on you. And the second piece of good news is I honestly believe that the war in Iran is over. I felt this way since really last week, since the ceasefire started. You don't really do a ceasefire. We have no reason to do a ceasefire. We're basically annihilating their military capacity, and unless you want to find a couple of things, you would just keep bombing them. And here's what we want to find. You take this pause in the war so that you can see where they dedicate their resources. What are they dedicating their resources to in the last several days? And we're watching everything. You know that we our capacity to view what they're doing is extraordinary. I'm sure that they're not giving us all of the story, but my guess is they're watching every single thing that they're doing and they're listening to it. And we're finding out if we do have to go back to military action, military strikes, where are we going to go first? So essentially, we're updating our target deck and saying, okay, here's where they're digging for uranium. Here's where they're opening up missile tunnels. They have these missile cities written about in the Wall Street Journal a few weeks back where they buried, like they would tunnel into a mountain, create a huge facility there. Missiles are very large, take huge trucks to move them. They're very heavy. And what did we do? Do we need to blow up the missiles? No, we just needed to blow up the exits for the missiles and they can't be used. Now, I assume if we start hostilities back up again, which is a possibility, but it's probable, it's possible, but it's not probable. If we had to do that, we know exactly where to go because we've seen where they're dedicating resources to. And they really don't want to give up their nuclear ambitions. The problem for them is they have literally no cards left to play. They're devastated militarily. They probably have a few small tricks up their sleeve, but they're not going to be hugely impactful to the market. So that being said, they really can't blow up ships in the Strait of Hormuz because they would have done that. We're finding that there are no mines in the Strait of Hormuz, and in a masterful move by this administration, I don't know who came up with it. I have a guess. We blockaded the Strait of Hormuz, and I'm glad we did this because they really only had one thing left to do, and that would be to stop shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, but they have no way to back that up. So they had told us that the strait was mined. It turns out that it's not mined. They're making people pay a $2 million bounty. We're stopping all of that. Now we're controlling it, and we're shutting off $500 million a day of income for the Iranian government. What do you think they do with that $500 million a day? They pay the IRGC, which is really their religious army. And that's the army that reports to the mullahs. That's the people that do the morality police. That's all those people. Well, that's not happening now. And because of that, because they're not going to be able to pay those people, what do you think those people are going to do? We're probably way closer to a revolution in Iran now than we were 2 weeks ago as we were bombing. Because people do have to eat and they want to take care of themselves. And if you don't get paid, you can't do that. So in response to that, we saw an all-time record on the S&P 500 yesterday. So all the fallout from the action in the Middle East is basically accounted for now. We've taken it all back, mostly, and the market is at very near-time highs, all-time highs. Now, here's what I think is going to happen. If it is truly the end of hostilities and we're going to negotiate and have an open Strait of Hormuz, free trade and all that, unabated shipping, we're going to get helium out of the Middle East so parties can happen now. Actually, that's not what we use. Well, we do use helium for balloons and the change of your voice, but we use it to make microchips. Yeah, we use it to make microchips. And there's a lot of other things that come out of that area, which are, they're important. You want to see trade, you want to see consuming happening, and you want to see trade happening. You want to see the free flow of shipping, goods and services. Those things will be happening. And if hostilities are over, I think the market is going to go up between 15 and 20% before the end of the year. That's my prediction. And we are on our way to that. And I could also see, so it's April 16th. I hope you paid your taxes yesterday. Did you cry when you paid them? Vote for less taxes. The only way to make the government spend less money is to not send them money in the first place. What is the government good at? They are good at a couple of things. There's no doubt. They're good at national security. Why? Because no company could afford to do what they do. The amount of money that's spent in national security is astronomical, for one thing. And the old defense companies use a model called cost plus. They never lose money. They can't lose money. So whatever cost they spend, plus a built-in profit margin. So they have, consequently, not a lot of incentive to limit costs. That's why I like these companies like Anduril and these other startups that make a $4 million missile for $400,000. And in fact, Anduril, private company, just built a missile production facility, and they're still building, and it's going to be over 1 million square feet of production facility at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Oh, I'm sorry, at Rickenbacker Air Force Base, Southeast Columbus. It's going to be amazing. They make 3 forms of a cruise missile there. The standard form, which is like the size of a small bus. One just smaller than that to be fired from a stationary platform. And one that's going to be fired from a shoulder-fired, a handheld platform. They all work in platforms that we already have. So you don't have to redesign the wheel to make these things work at 1/10 of the cost. And their capacity is going to be humongous. So we, of course, have fired off a lot of our inventory in the past 8 weeks. We need to rebuild that inventory. They're going to be a big part of that. So I love companies like that. That's really good for us. 15 to 20% higher is my prediction. Now, of course, we don't know what's going to happen in between now and then, so it might not come true, but all things being equal, economists love to say that. I have my education is economics and finance, so I lean on my economics part of my brain. Most economists, that part of their brain, they sit on it, but I happen to have applied it in real life. So if you go to a college, you go to a school of a business school and study econ, you're going to get a lot of theory. And theories are great for books, but in practical application, I like to see things that actually work. And I've done that. I've walked these things out. I've seen them. I've studied them. I speak from practical experience when we talk. And I think that's what compels people about me is I've actually done these things. Most economists, they write a lot of books. They look at a lot of theory. And the Federal Reserve is run by economists, right? Look at what they did in the Biden administration. They're the ones that came up with the word transitory on inflation, by the way. Chair Powell otherwise known as Chair Powell. He's on his last leg. He's only got one meeting left. He's threatened to not leave if this investigation of him is still up and running. It's still going to be up and running. They're going to force him out, and President Trump is going to fire him. And I hope he does, because even though he was a Trump appointee, Trump appointed him. And he's been quite possibly, outside of Janet Yellen, one of the worst Fed chairmen aside from Arthur Burns. He allowed inflation to get way out of control and had a million excuses, and then he jacked up rates faster than anybody in history after realizing he probably woke up in the middle of the night and said, "Oh my gosh, I got to raise rates." And then they did it the fastest pace ever, but it should have never gotten there. Your job as the Fed chairman, you have two jobs, even though they've added a lot. They've added climate change as one of their jobs. President Trump's new Fed chair, of course, is going to remove that. That's not their job. You have two jobs as Fed chairman: price stability, which he totally failed at, and full employment. He totally failed at price stability. The one thing he has direct control over, price stability, he totally failed at under his watch. So he's going to get fired if he doesn't leave, because he's not going to be Fed chairman anymore, but he's still a Fed governor. He should get fired from that job. And actually, I wouldn't even let him teach preschool. I wouldn't let him park my car, let alone run the Fed. So those things are going to happen. But here's what I want you to think about as we move forward. We had Liberation Day last year where the market fell, and we assigned all these tariffs to countries, and we were down for 8 or 9 weeks, and then the market recovered and took off. And then we had Iran this year. And of course, all the talking heads were talking about how Trump is going to lead us to a global catastrophe. There's going to be nuclear war. I just heard the governor of Kentucky said he's worried that Trump is going to launch a nuclear weapon just so he could be the most popular person ever. These people they're stupid. That is a stupid thing to say. And he probably knows it. And they have Trump derangement syndrome so bad that they can't see past the obvious benefits of an act like this in Iran. If you could, instead of Iran being a projection of power to a negative in the Middle East and the world, if you could just make them neutral and make the Middle East safe and relatively calm, you're going to see Iran become prosperous and really a member of society, a responsible member of civilized society. That will lower energy prices dramatically. You're going to see oil, another prediction, you can hold me to it if you want. So it's April 16th. I think by June, you're going to see oil back below 70, back below $65 a barrel. Because what you need to do is you need to get the cadence of shipping back in place. So not only ships loaded with oil and dropping off, but doing the return trip and doing it again, then the cadence is back. Even though we don't get any oil from the Middle East, we get no oil from the Strait of Hormuz. It all goes to India and China. You need those things to be happening, because when they're not taking it from there, they're taking it from someplace else. And blockading Iran is really a masterful move by the administration, because it takes China's cheap oil out of play. We basically are controlling China's energy process right now. That is a powerful thing. Powerful. And if Iran had gotten a nuclear weapon, and we believe that they would have used it probably in the Middle East, if you think oil is expensive now, wait till they blow up a country with a nuclear weapon. You would see oil at $1,000 a barrel. Nobody would be driving. Even though we're energy independent, we're sending oil out. We're energy independent here. Even the Biden administration tried to kill that. They did effectively slow down our liquefied natural gas prospects, but we're going to get back to it. We'll be shipping liquefied natural gas to Europe, the Caribbean, a lot of places that have really expensive energy. they could cut their energy costs down by just using our energy, and we want to sell it to them. And that's going to happen. So Venezuela was about first narco terrorism in our region, but secondarily removing Russia and China from our region because they're very involved in Cuba and Venezuela. Well, that's over. Iran is about peace in the Middle East, if possible, and removing China from the region because they're very involved in Iran and use their energy. This is way more than just the obvious things of Maduro and the mullahs. It's about getting back to the United States dictating the policy of the world. And we saw how we were mistreated by NATO. That's also going to change. These things, if you're thinking long term, are powerfully accretive to us. This is going to be great things for us and great things for the world too, because if Iran can't project power, if they're a peaceful contributing nation, the whole mix of the Middle East changes. It's really a positive thing. And I know it's when you go to your gas station and you're seeing, $3.75 or $4 a gallon, it's hard to look at right away, but honestly, it will get better. And gas is going to be cheaper by June. Don't let them fool you. These are good things. We are growth oriented. We've always been growth oriented. We always will be growth oriented unless we have to change it. But I'm looking at my screen right now and I'm loving what I'm seeing. I am David Szafranski, a real American, a true red-blooded patriot, a gun owner, and the voice you can trust.